Oh, Shalom Aleichem. Wow.
Oh, wow. VIP guest tonight. How are you?
Yeah, it's not Stam. Okay. Tonight's learning should be a Sfas for continued refuah shlema for Yaakov Mordechai ben Yutaratza and for Shendel Devorah Bas Chayachana, for Shal Ruven ben Gidel Sasha, Besoch Sharchol Yisrael, also for Chamutal Bas Naomi. And we continue to learn and to daven for the Chayalim. They should be successful, they should be safe. We learn for the Chatufim, they should be returned. And the Cholim in Eretz Yisrael, everyone should have refuah shlema. And we should hear Besuros Tovos from Eretz Yisrael. We were in, again, we said it last week in Vas Chanan, but Eikev also. These are Eretz Yisrael Dika Parshios. To have a Ben Eretz Yisrael with us is a chashuv thing. And learning these Parshios should be a schos for not just Klal Yisrael, but for Eretz Yisrael. And we should be zocha to be there. Okay, let's jump in. Before we even get to this Sfas emes, I do want to share a piece from Rav Moshe Feinstein and from the Netziv. Rav Moshe comments on the following. At the very beginning of this week's Parsha, so the Torah tells us, V'haya Eikev tishmun es hamishpatim ha'ila u'shmartem ha'asisem osam v'shamar Hashem Elokecha lecha es habris v'es hachesed asher nishba lavosecha. Basically telling us if we follow the mitzvos, we keep them dear, we guard them, we do them, so then Hashem will maintain his half of the bargain, so to speak. And the next pasuk and the psukim following tell us that Hashem will shower bracha upon us. Rashi says, what's being alluded to, what's being hinted to by the words of Haya Eikev Tishmun? So Rashi says these are the mitzvos kalos. Ha-mitzvos kalos she'adam dosh ba'akev v'tishmun. People kind of throw to the side, they're dosh, like we talk about the malacha and Shabbos disha, dosh. And you kind of step on them, you trample over them because they're not so significant. So Rav Moshe Feinstein says something very powerful. He says, the only way a person can possibly come to the conclusion that some mitzvahs are more important versus less important is if he's approaching them through his own intellect. Like, does it make sense to me? Does this mitzvah compute? And then, if I understand this mitzvah, so to speak, so then it's going to fall into some sort of hierarchy, some sort of pyramid of importance or maybe less importance when it comes to mitzvos. But if our approach to mitzvos it's the Ratzon Hashem, so there's no such thing as Chamor or Kal. It's the Ratzon Hashem. So where you might think if wearing tzitzis, that's not such a big deal. I put it on in the morning, I don't think about it the rest of the day, that's not such a big deal. But there's certain mitzvahs that, whatever, pick your favorite mitzvah, right? That's significant, that's an important mitzvah, that's a big time mitzvah. Says Rav Moshe, the only reason we come to that conclusion is because we're thinking about the mitzvah through our own lens and our own way of thinking. But if a person takes a step back and just says, this is the Ratzon Hashem, so it doesn't matter what mitzvah he's involved in. It's unbelievable because I'm doing the Ratzon Hashem right now. And there's nothing greater, and there's nothing that brings more nachas ruach to Kadosh Baruch Hu than fulfilling his Ratzon. So says Rav Moshe, again pointing out, that's the only way a person can come to this assumption or conclusion of im hamitzvos kalos. There's no such thing as kal if it's the Ratzon Hashem, which I think, again, it's a source of chizuk for us. Whatever it is that we're involved in, if it's the Ratzon Hashem, it's the greatest thing in the entire world.
Can I say something?
Please.
Can you do that? Do you know?
Please. Yeah.
Because a good example of that is that there are three mitzvot that appear to have the same schar. Kibur Avayim, Shiloh Hakem, and Mishkalot.
Mm-hmm.
They all say that if you do that, then you get an Arichut Yamim. So Shiloh Hakem takes 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So Kibur Avayim takes
Very difficult.
all your life and further.
Yeah.
Right? And yet you get, it seems to be you get, says it shows that you cannot objectively or subjectively you cannot work out what's big or what's small. What you think is big, maybe small.
Beautiful. So maybe to add one more nakuda from the Netziv, and I think, at least for me, this resonates in a certain way. Sometimes we look at other people being involved in certain areas of Avodas Hashem. We look at a person learning, or a person teaching, or we look at how someone davens, or how a person gives tzedakah. And because we look at other people's avoda, we begin to second guess or maybe doubt our own avoda. To say, maybe I'm not doing as much as I could. Maybe I should be more like that person. And that relativity, we'll call it, is sometimes, sucking the air out of our own avodas Hashem. So this is something very cool. It's kedai to go through the whole piece. We're not going to go through it right now. It's like a 5.5 column Netziv here. But we don't want to say that one pasuk is more important than another, God forbid. But there's a very important pasuk in this week's parsha. The Torah tells us in Chamishi, what does Hashem ask of you? Only, right? To fear Him, to go in His ways, to love Him, to serve Hashem with all your heart. Pretty important pasuk. So the Netziv says something very cool. I would have thought, and I think most people assume like this, is that this is referring to everybody, meaning we have all of these mitzvos that we're supposed, we know that these are all separate mitzvos, and we have the mitzvah of Yiras Hashem, Avas Hashem, Halacha B'Derachim, so really they do all apply to each and every one of us. But the Netziv says in this context, actually, it's referring to different groups of people. Just want to find the words. He says, Yesh L'Daktek U'Lehisbonin. We have to be particular, precise, and we have to understand. Hashem is calling upon each and every single one of us where we're at, according to a person's kochos. What does this mean? He says that every single one of these commandments in this pasuk is actually referring to different groups of people. There are 4 categories of Jews. Kamosha Bi'arnu Parshas Balak, on the pasuk of Matovu, and he also speaks about it in Nitzavim. Shehim, we have Roshim, Umanhigim B'Yisrael. We have the Manhigei Hador. We have the leaders of the generation. We have the Talmidei Chachamim, who are called the Ziknei Yisrael. We have Balabatim, who are Osek B'Parnasa, and we have Nashim Ba'avadim Uktanim. V'kol echad mikitos halalu inu doma lechavero. Every single one of these groups of people, wherever we all fall in respectively, we all have almost like a different avoda. Yes, we all have to keep 613 mitzvos, but maybe certain aspects of Avodah Hashem are going to be emphasized, and other areas in Avodah Hashem are going to be a little bit more in the periphery. What does he say? He just gives an example. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but he gives one example where he talks about the Roshechem v'Shiftechem. Shehim haroshim manhigei ador. We have this idea of being osek b'tzarchei tzibor, but these people are osek b'tzarchei tzibor in a spitz way. They're not just on the board of the school; they're mamish like the movers and shakers of Klal Yisrael. Shehem inam rishom lihi batal mizeh lo la'asok ba'ahava udveikus. Don't think that you can have a 5-hour Shemona Esrei or a 4-hour Gemara Seder. Dveikus is good, but the Netziv says that's really, that avodah of Ava and Dveikus is for the Ziknei Yisrael, the Talmidei Chachamim. But a person who is involved in the Jewish people, being involved in the advancement and the progress of the Jewish people, so his main avodah, says the Netziv, his main avodah is Yiras Hashem. It's Yiras Hashem. Why? Because if you have power, if you have maybe money to allocate, if you have kavod coming to you, so very easily can get to a person's head. Memela, what does he need to do? He needs to lean in on the Yiras Shamayim and recognize that he's only in a power position because he has to help the Jewish people. And Kol Zman, he's working on his Yiras Hashem, so he's going to hopefully be successful in that avodah. But if it's not, I would say, like reinforced with and surrounded with Yiras Hashem, so all the different, we'll call them Yetzer Haras, whether it's Taiva, whether it's Kavod, whether it's Kino, all these different things can pull a person away and distract a person what he ought to be doing. So he goes through this. He's marich a lot, and he says that there's an avoda for the Baal Batim or Osek B'Parnasa, and for the Nashim and Avodim and Ketanim. Everybody has a different avoda, and he connects it to the Psukim. We won't go through it now because we want to get to the Sfas a little bit. Thank you. But I think it's to me it related a little bit to this piece from Rav Moshe. Because Rav Moshe is saying there's no such thing as kal or chamor. You're doing the Ratzon Hashem. So if we have a particular avoda, right now I'm a balabas and I'm osek b'parnasa and I'm taking care of my family, a person shouldn't get down on himself thinking like, oh, I wish I was the manhigei hador. I wish I was a ziknei Yisrael. You have a job. And right now in that area, so your job is to do the Ratzon Hashem. It doesn't matter if it's quote kal or if it's quote chamor, you're doing the Ratzon Hashem. And if a Jew puts his head on his pillow at night and says, I did the Ratzon Hashem today, so then give out. What else should we be concerned with? What else should we be worried about doing? If you're doing the Ratzon Hashem, so that's the best thing in the world. Don't get caught up in kal or chum or anything like that. So that's just by way of introduction. Okay.
I feel like ideally, though, we have pieces of each one.
100%. Yeah. So first of all, I agree with you, meaning that's why I said we have to keep 650 mitzvos. Certain things are maybe more emphasized, but I think really what your point is saying that maybe at different times we go through different iterations in life. And we're in different stages in life. So maybe right now I am more like this, and at a different point in life I'm a little bit more in this category. It reminds me of the, I think it's the Yerushalmi that says when the Jewish people went to Yam Suf, so there were 4 groups of Jews. There were the Jews who said, let's fight against the Mitzrim. There were Jews who said, let's jump into the water. There were Jews who said, let's daven and be osek in Amunah. And then there were Jews who said, let's just go back to Mitzrayim. 4 categories of Jews. So I remember asking every year Parshas B'Shalach, I say over this medrash, this Yerushalmi, and I ask my class, like, which group would you be in? It's a fun Shabbos table conversation. Where would you fight? There are always the guys that shoot, yeah, we're gonna fight. It's like, take on the mitzvah. So they all give different answers, and then inevitably they say, Rebbe, what about you? And very often I tell them, like, it depends on the day. There's some days where I feel like I'll fight. And there's some days where I have the most of the moon in the world, and some days I feel like I can be nachshon, I'll jump in, and the other days are like, I know, I'm going back to Mitzrayim. But I think that's part of life. Like we're all baderech, so to speak, right? We're all works in progress, and we're going through it. And again, that's the different stages and iterations of life. So I don't think one is wrong versus right. It's just like recognizing where you're at, and that's the point here. Wherever it is that we are, if we're focused on doing the Ratzon Hashem in that moment, so that's what we need to be doing. Okay, good. Let's take a look at the Sfas emes. So we're going to look at the first piece on the page. Sorry to make so many copies. Sell out crowd here, Baruch Hashem. I wasn't expecting this. The WhatsApp group was a little quiet. Okay, fine. So Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Mi'imach Ki Im Lira. Just to fear God. That seems to be the number one. Af, says the Sfas emes, Af shechoshev od kama milos. We count out many other milos. There are other things in the psukim. There are other things we're supposed to be doing. But the Sfas emes is saying is that the Yirah Shamayim is the first one. So what's he alluding to? What does it mean, ki im lira? So rak shal yidei yira amitis yechol lavo lechol hashar. If a person has real, true yiras Hashem, so that is really the gateway. I don't want to say the gateway drug, but the gateway midah to all other milos in avodas Hashem. You have to have yiras Hashem. If you don't have yiras Hashem, so everything's just going to fall apart. A house of cards. But yiras Shamayim is what gives the stability to everything else that we're doing. The Chazal Lamdu, the Gemara tells us, Hakol bidei Shamayim chutz mi yiras Shamayim. That everything comes, Hakol bidei Shamayim, everything really comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything's decided almost to some degree. The cards are being dealt. Chutz mi yiras Shamayim. Yiras Shamayim's up to us. But what does that mean? So it says the Sfas emes, based on what we just explained, he has a new understanding to that line, Hakol bidei Shamayim chutz mi yiras Shamayim. Hapirush, she yira hakdama lekol davar. Yiras Hashem is the hakdama. It's the prerequisite from everything else that we're going to unlock in Shemayim. Ube emes hakol me Hashem yisparach. Everything is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hakol bidei Shemayim. Rak shal yidei yira yuchal ha'adam lahargish ha'oras Hashem yisparach sheish b'chol davar. Everything we get from everything we have in life, everything we receive in life, everything that we accomplish, it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If a person isn't suffused with yiras Hashem, so often kochem v'otzim yadi can creep in. We feel like, I'm the man. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm accomplishing. But if a person has yiras Hashem, if a person is living with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be constantly aware and cognizant of the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then we're going to realize that everything we get and everything we attain and everything we accomplish is really coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'chazal amru al yira shenikreis maftechos hachitzonius. That yira is the key. What does that mean? Shachitzonius mastir hapnimius. The superficial, the external, conceals and hides the panemius, the inner, the real stuff. Where's the cream filling? Va'itzel zeh sha'yidei hayira nofal pachar ala chitzonius umiskala hapanimis. If a person has real yiras Hashem, so what does it mean? It's a cool lashon. The Sfas emes is saying it's nofal pachar ala chitzonius. The superficial stuff, all the superficial things in life, get scared and almost fall away. So I think what he's saying is, if a person has real yiras Shamayim, and we've all seen people who live with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so all the shtick in life that sometimes distracts us, that person's able to cut right through it. They're not impressed by the chitzonius. They're not impressed by the superficial material things that people have in life. They want to know what's real. They want to get to the panemius. Are you a mensch? Are you Baal Midos? Are you learning? Are you davening? What's your avoda like? They don't care about what kind of car or what kind of anything. They're not into the labels. They want to know what's real. They're not into the chitzonius. V'kol davar shemevakshim me'a'odam nechlal b'hakdama sayira sha'ayidei zeh ozer Hashem yisparach al hashar. V'kol davar shemevakshim me'a'odam, and everything that's asked of from man, nechlal b'hakdama hayira, meaning the number one thing that really Hashem wants from us, ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Mi'imach, it's yiras Hashem, and everything else will follow suit. V'chein amru zal. Gemara tells us, a relatively well-known Gemara, al tikri ma ela meya. Gemara Menachos, if I'm not mistaken. The Gemara tells us, darshaning the pasuk, ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Mi'imach, don't read it as ma, but read it as meya. And we learn from there that a person has a chiyuv, v'lamdu meya brachos. A person has a chiyuv to make 100 brachos a day. So, you say, so what does that mean? Like, what's the Gemara getting at? The Gemara is making a chassidish avar, adding an extra letter, like, don't think of it as meya, don't read it as ma, read it as meya, and then gival. You can 100. Let's make 100 brachos a day. It's just like a cute chassidish avar here in the Gemara. No, Chazal is telling us that the key to Yiras Hashem, one of the keys to Yiras Hashem, is making brachos. Why? Because if the whole idea is being aware of God, what's one of the best ways you can be aware of God? Making brachos. If you're making sure to say Baruch Atah Hashem, Atah, you, God. So I'm mamish faced upon him with the Kadosh Baruch Hu every single time I make a bracha. I think we quoted this a couple weeks ago in on the Tuesday night shir, not on Wednesday night. But the Gemara, the Torah points out, where did this come from? Who instituted 100 brachos a day? So the Torah points out that it was David HaMelech, because 100 people a day were dying from his army. There was a Magefa, there was a plague. So the Medrash actually points out, though, the Torah doesn't quote this. If you look up the Medrash says, why were they dying, though? It's just stam, 100 people dropping dead every day. They had corona. Like, what's going on here? What kind of Magefa are we talking about? So it's this actually took place at the end of Shmuel Beis, and David HaMelech's one overarching desire in life was what? To build the Beis HaMikdash. And he wanted to, they're in Eretz Yisrael, and he wants to build the Beis HaMikdash. And the Chevra in his army were like, we're in Eretz Yisrael, things are good. Like we don't need it. They didn't have a burning passion to build the Beis HaMikdash. And Hashem was so upset that he created this Magev, and 100 people were dying every single day. So David HaMelech comes along, what's the tikkun to stop the Magefa? 100 brachos a day. Like, what does that help? People died because they didn't want to Beis HaMikdash. They want to build the Beis HaMikdash. So make 100 brachos a day, and everyone's going to get better. What's the vart? So Rav Elia Baruch Finkel from the Mirror points out something beautiful. What is the Beis HaMikdash? The Beis HaMikdash is a makom of Hashras HaShechina. We come into contact with God. There's no greater way to bring Hashem into your life than the Beis HaMikdash and going to Ola L'Regel, seeing the Beis HaMikdash. So what was David HaMelech thinking? Well, how do we get them to start seeing God in their life? Let's make 100 brachos a day. If you start making 100 brachos a day, Baruch Atah Hashem every single day, and you're aware of, you're cognizant of the reality, the mitzias of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and your life all of a sudden has more and more Yer Shemayim, so what's the person going to want more of? Just more of that. You want more FaceTime with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I want to come in contact with God. What's the best place to do that? Where can I make that happen? Beis HaMikdash. So the tikkun for these people not wanting to build a Beis HaMikdash was making 100 brachos a day, because eventually what you're going to come to? You're going to come to a point of wanting a Beis HaMikdash because I just need to see more of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my life. So the Sfas is saying here what? We have to make 100 brachos a day. Yiras Hashem. But he adds another layer which is beautiful. Sheyesh b'chol davar bracha me Hashem yisbarach v'rak yedei hachnasa adam leida ki mahu v'al yedei hashiflus v'hayir mistabik ba'achdus. So it says this Sfas is Hakol b'dei Shemaim. Everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chutz mi'ir Shemaim. The only way that we can properly appreciate that it's all coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is what? Is through our own Yir Shemaim. Make 100 brachos a day. Make 100 brachos a day. Bring Hashem into your life. When you do that and you have all of this bracha, Baruch Hashem, I have a seltzer here. Baruch Hashem, I can stop for my coffee on my way to work, on the way home from work, or whatever it is. And we're making brachos and brachos and brachos. You say, I have all this bracha in life. Now, again, if we didn't bring Hashem into the picture, chas v'shalom, we would think it's all me, or I'm lucky, or whatever it is. But if you're making brachos and you're saying Baruch Atah Hashem, so Hashem's in life. Hashem's in your life. And you realize that all the bracha that we experience in life, and we're showered with bracha every single day, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. The fact that our bodies work, the fact that we can see color, the fact that we, just everything around us with our families and our friends and our community, there's so much bracha. There's so much bracha. But if we're not pointing it out and saying Baruch Atah Hashem, so very often when we remove Hashem out of the picture, it doesn't feel like bracha. When you bring Hashem in and when you start to be Makir Tov and really appreciate it, so then you realize how special it is and how much we were given. And that comes through Yir Shemayim. Yir Shemayim is the key to unlocking that. It's through a shiflus, a certain sense of humility, v'hayira, and through that you can be misdabik v'ha'achdus. You can recognize that it's all from that one spot, the Yichud Hashem, v'hu koach Hashem yisparach. V'zeh pirush habracha ledabik kol davar b'shorsho. We want to connect everything to its shoresh, which is what? Shehu rak me Hashem yisparach. V'zeh al tikrei ma elamei. When we make those 100 brachos a day, that's one of the ways that we can suffuse ourselves with Yir Shemayim, and we're going to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything. When you see Hashem in everything, you're going to realize how much bracha ultimately we have. Good. So that's Nekuda number 1 from the Sfas emes. Okay, let's take a look at Taf Reish Lamed Ches. We'll look at the next piece. V'yata Yisrael, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shama Yimach, Ki Im Lira. So it says the Sfas emes again. We'll see how a little bit more nuanced here. Another layer. Hakol b'dei shemayim chutz miyir shemayim v'kchi lo yadanu ki hakol b'dei shemayim. Don't we all know that it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Everything we have in life comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's going on? Avol bir ha'inyan ki kol avodas ha'adam gam kein hakol b'dei shemayim. Meaning it's not just the things we receive in life, but our avoda, what we're supposed to be involved in, that comes, it's also b'dei shemayim. The stage in life, the place in life, the things that we're dealing with, the cards that we're dealt, and the card, that the dealer puts down, and the river, and everything there, it's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what's the one, what are we achrei for? If Hashem's giving us all the cards, and everything's kind of laid out in front of us, so what's the variable that we're in control of that is ultimately going to have an afkamina for everything else going on in our life? So it says the Sfas emes, that is Yir Shemayim. The Gemara tells us that if a person opens up a little, like the eye of the needle, I think it's also a medrash in Shir Shirim Rabbah, but I think the Gemara in one of the smaller Masechtas has this. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, B'ni Piskali Pesach Echad Shel Tshuva Kechud Shamachat V'ani Posech Lechem Pesachim Shiyu Agalos Ukranios Nichnasos Bo. Open it up. I'll open up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you open up a little eye of the needle, I'll rip it open, that you can have wagons and all sorts of animals passing through. We just have to do a little bit. V'alzeh Amru, right? We just said, V'zeh Ashar HaKatan Hu B'dei Adam. That's what we're supposed to do. V'kol HaMitzvos Emaisim Tovim V'hasagos Adam HaKol Ba Al Yidei Yir Shemayim. Everything that ultimately we accomplish, all the good that we do, and I think what he's getting at is many people do good things, but if it's true and is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it has to be with the undercurrent of Yiras Hashem. V'hi marganisa deles leitime. V'alzen nemar, the pasuk in Yeshaya, Yiras Hashem hi otzaro. Yiras Hashem is what guards and protects everything. It's what maintains everything, right? If you have all this beautiful produce in a giant, otzer, in a giant, storehouse, but it's not locked. You don't have to. You can't keep other people away, or you can't store it at the right temperature, and it's just going to be left open, and subject to the elements. So it's eventually other things are going to get destroyed. So you might have nice ma'asim tovim. We might have good davening. We might give tzedakah, but at a certain point, it's going to come to it'll get undone almost. V'chazal amru al tikrei ma elameya. V'darshu mizeh meya brachos, like we quoted a moment ago. V'he'inyan ki mahu hefuch mimeya. What's the opposite of meya? Shemeyahu kol hashlemus mahaschala ad hasof. So 100 is like the most complete unit. Maral talks about 10 is a complete unit, and 10 times 10, which is 100, is spitz shlemus. Ube'emes al yidei habitul Hashem yisparach shehu bechinas ma. Meaning when a person says, I'm a nothing, like what am I, what can I possibly accomplish, and a person has a nice serving of humility. So what happens if a person says that I'm a nothing? You make space for the one. If I say I'm a zero, what are you doing? When you minimize yourself, you're making room for a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So you're a zero, what do you put in front of it though? You put the one in front of it. It reminds me of an unbelievable Maisa, Rav Chaim Marcus from Springfield. Any Reshit ever here? No? Reshit? So Rav Chaim Marcus, his brothers are all in Reshit. Anyway, so he told me that he's Rav in Springfield, New Jersey, and there was an older balabas who came to Mincha, he came to Minyan every day. And one day he lamented to Rav Marcus that I just feel like what am I even doing here? I don't really understand the davening. I never feel like I connect. Nothing resonates. And he said his lashon was, I feel like I'm putting up a 0 on the scoreboard every single day. That was his lashon. So you look at the scoreboard, 0, 0, 0, 0. So stam, it's like if someone says it to you, what do you say? I would never have good answers to those kinds of questions. But Rav Marcus is something amazing. He said, it's gewalt that you keep coming to daven. You feel like you're putting up a 0 on the scoreboard, and yet you come every single day. So he said, what's happening on the scoreboard? Yeah, you're right. You might be putting up more zeros. He said, but one day it's going to finally click. Things are going to resonate. And you'll get that one, that one davening, that one Shmona Esrei, Kilu, that one run. L'mashal. But he said, it's not going to go on the end. He said, that one is going to go at the front of all those other zeros. Because you kept on coming, you kept on plugging away. And that one day when it finally resonates and it clicks, boom. And it's going to turn everything else into like 100, 1,000, whatever it is. So the Sfas emes is saying, if we look at ourselves as a ma, what am I? What can I possibly accomplish on my own? So then what? Then you're allowing space for that one. You're allowing space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's how we reach Shleimus, by minimizing ourselves. Niftach makor habrachos, v'zeh hachachma shenemar hein yiras Hashem hi chachma. She'ikar hachachma lahavin ki koach kol habruim me'abor yisparach. The greatest chachma in the world is to recognize that we're really nothing, like we say by right before Karbanos in the morning. What are we? Are we really anything? Our bina is nothing. Our gvura is nothing. It's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the greatest chachma, to recognize that. And that's something that's unique to the Jewish people, that we can have that in Yikotz Psukim and Tehillim. So again, this idea of minimizing ourselves, to make ourselves zero, we make space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What do they say from the Kutzker? Where's God found? Wherever you let Him in. We make space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and one of the ways to do that is by making brachos every single day, 100 brachos. That's how we could achieve shleimus, and again, that's coming through Yiras Shamayim. Let's take a look at the next piece here in Taf Reish Mem Beis. In Taf Reish Mem Beis, he continues a little bit. Again, it's related. The Torah tells us, "Haya im shma tishmu mitzvosai v'chulei." So psukim we are familiar with. Rashi says, what are we supposed to be looking at? What are we supposed to be listening to? Shamua b'yashan and tishma b'chadash. So what does that mean? How would you translate that? What do we got? Listen to the Yashan, the old ones, right? And Tishma b'chadash. You got to listen. New and old, new halachos, new developments in halacha maybe. Right? We have to constantly be listening. Don't just listen to the old stuff, but be paying attention to the new, so to speak. Dichsiv, Osei, Divaro, Lishmoa, Bekol Divaro. Say it again? That passing to Tehillim, you're saying? Yeah. Shikifi Masha Mekaimim HaMitzvos Lishma, to the extent that we fulfill the mitzvos Lishma, Kach Zochen Lishma Ki HaTorah Genuza B'mitzvos. If a person is performing their mitzvos Lishma, so they'll be Zocha Lishmoa, they'll be Zocha to hear Ki HaTorah Genuza B'mitzvos. There's Torah that's hidden in mitzvos. V'alzei Isa Ashrei Sheyishma LeMitzvosecha. Praiseworthy is the one that listens to the mitzvos. Now, I always thought when I daven that, I always assume that means like, okay, praise the one who listens to the mitzvos, i.e., who does the mitzvos. But the Sfas emes is telling us to recognize that there's Torah that's hidden in the mitzvos. If a person is doing the mitzvos properly, we're doing them lishma, so all of a sudden it unlocks Torah that's almost hidden in these mitzvos. Ki bevadei ein shir l'tamei mitzvos. For sure, we know that there's no limit to the tamei mitzvos. They're infinitely deep and infinitely profound. The more we grow, the more we understand, the more we connect. So all of a sudden, there are new levels and elements and layers to tamei mitzvos in understanding the mitzvos. V'nikra mamish mitzavcha hayom. Rakzel, meaning that means mitzavcha hayom. We're supposed to listen to the commandments every single day, like they're new. What does that mean? Says the Sfas emes, if we connect to the Torah and we are doing mitzvahs lishma, so there are new Torahs, so to speak, that we can be unlocking every day. But it's dependent upon us to search and want to fulfill the mitzvahs of Hashem. So this is very cool, and I think this maybe connects to what we started with. The Sfas emes says this is only shaykh to a person who wants to do mitzvahs Hashem, and not la'asos hamuto alav bilvad, and not to be yotzei zayin doing the mitzvahs. It's not that so I have to daven, so I'm going to daven. I have to give some tzedakah. I have to go to my daf yomi shir, otherwise I'm going to fall behind. Fine. So as I'm saying, we're involved in mitzvahs on a higher level. We're not checking boxes here. It's not like grocery list, Yiddishkeit, but it's what? It's I'm doing it because it's the Ratzon Hashem. V'zen nikra kabal so mitzvos. What does it mean to be mekabel o mitzvos? To accept upon yourself or ourselves the yoke of mitzvos. Lios mishtokik tamid. To be yearning, to desire, to want. Lishmo l'kayim ratzon abori yisparach. To say that I'm going to do the mitzvos, be makabel o mitzvos, doesn't mean that, okay, I have a list of things I need to do today. It means that I am going to look for opportunities throughout the day to do mitzvos. Or if I'm at work, I'm thinking about the opportunity later today that I have to be involved in the mitzvah that I really want to be involved in. And if a person has that perspective, Zochin l'shmoa, b'chol yom will be able to hear new Torahs, so to speak, every single day. V'amru, v'savata, hishamru lachem. So later on in the Parsha, and this is based on the Sifri, but it's from this Parsha, in other mored rak mitoch sevia. A person is only going to rebel if they're satisfied, if they're full. That's why it says Yachalta v'savata, and then the lashon is no, not uvirachta, but then we're gonna kick. No, right. That's Levayit is a kick. So there's a lashon in another place of Yachalta v'savata, but there's another lashon of Yachalta v'savata. Yeah, I think if you add something like that we're going to kick, that we're going to reject, that we're going to rebel. That's why the Sifri comments, in other mored, rak mitoch sevia. In ze dafka b'achila v'shtia gashmis, but says the Sfas emes, and I found this to be so profound, we're not just talking about a physical level of eating food and rebelling. Ragam b'mile kreso b'torah v'avoda. When a person fills his kishkas, his belly, with Torah and avoda, tzarich lios tamid itzel ha'pesach, a person can't check the box that, okay, I davened today and I did my daf yomi and I gave $1 in the pushka during davening, so I'm good to go. I'm yotzi zayin. When a person says I'm full, right? I did the daf, I did the this, I did the mishnayos, or I did my dirshu mishabru, or whatever a person has to do, whatever person feels like they have to do. So a person feels like, oh, I'm yotzi zayin now. So then they're going to go into a state of rebellion. Meaning what? They're gonna say, I can do whatever I want now. I can coast. I'm good to go. I was yotzi zayin my avodas Hashem today, and now I can, over the adam kilu. I can do whatever I need to do. But if a person is never saveya, if a person is never full and satisfied from his mitzvos and his avoda and his Torah, so then kikifi ma shechaser la'adam umishtokik, to the extent that a person feels like he's lacking and there's more to accomplish and there's more to do, like we spoke about when a person wakes up in the morning and they realize I have what to do in life. I'm going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to prepare shir. Why? Not me, don't worry, but other people here who are waking up early to prepare shir. Why are they doing that? Because I have a reason to wake up in the morning. It's not crazy to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know I have something to do with my life. So when a person feels that I'm chaser and I'm mishtokik and I have more to do and more to accomplish and more to produce, el hashleimos, so kach mashpiyan lo mishamayim, you're going to get the siyata d'shmaya to do that. Because you're saying, Hashem, I want to accomplish and I want to do it. And at a certain point, you're saying, yeah, it's not so hard to wake up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because I know I have something to do. I have something to be busy with. More than the calf wants to nurse, so the mother wants to take care and nurse the child. We want to produce. That's why it says this Sfas emes beautifully. Again, it adds another layer to this. I never appreciated it until we learned this Sfas emes, but he's saying that's why you have to be makabel machshim every single day. You have to be makabel o mitzvos every single day. Because what are we ultimately saying by being makabel o mitzvos? We're saying I'm doing it for the right reasons, and I'm doing it because I have a unquenchable thirst for your mitzvos. And every single day I'm going to be makabel this upon myself to say, Hashem, I want to be involved in the right things, and I want to keep on going and keep on going. So he says like this, V'isa, he quotes the Sifri again, Kevan sha'adam poresh min ha'torah v'chulei. So here at the bottom, he elucidates, V'achalta v'savata hishemru lechem pen yiftel avavchem. You're going to eat, you're going to be full, and you're going to veer. Amar lehem, hiziru shelo yite eschem yitzer hara. V'tifreshu min ha'torah. Shekim sha'adam poresh min ha'torah, holechem medabi levodah zara. It's a real quick, it's a slippery slope. You go away from Torah for a little bit, the Yitzhar is going to get you and throw you down a path of avodah zara. Hainu, kenal shetzrichem b'chol yom lasok b'torah lahasig, mashu rotzon abori yisbarach tamid. She's tamid his chadshus b'torah. That's why b'chol yom HaKadosh Baruch Hu machadish halacha. Chazal tell us, the Medrash tells us, v'akol b'torah mitzvahs. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, is machadish Torah every single day. And just like Hashem is doing that, so we have to do the same thing. We have to relate to Torah and halacha and Torah and avoda in a new way every single day, saying there's more to accomplish and more to do. And the more a person says that, so the more siyat d'shmaya he'll have in his avoda, and the more he's going to see that he can accomplish. The road is just gonna open itself up for us, and we'll see that there is more for us to accomplish. And again, it's going to be almost like a cyclical relationship here. The more we're mishtokik to do more, the more Hashem's going to allow us to do more. That's what we're trying to get at here, says this Sfas. So let's just review. We said two things from Hashem Eikev Shalom Yimach. We spoke about Yiras Shamayim as the Pesach and the gateway, not drug, but the gateway midah for all other milos in Avodas Hashem. And we spoke about how it has to kind of be the undercurrent of all other avodah that we're doing in order to allow us to do the proper things. And we spoke about bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into our lives every single day through the Mea Brachos, being aware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being present, making Him present in our lives, panim upon Him. The more we have that mitzias, that reality, that awareness in our life, the more that's going to propel us for further avodah. We spoke about this idea of Hayim Shmo Tishmo Mitzvah V'chulei. So listen to the new and the old. Again, the new is the what? Every single day there's more Torah, there's more avodah, there's more avodas Hashem to accomplish, and we should never be satisfied. We should always be pushing for more and more and more. So we'll hold it here, and Yasher Koach, everyone.